Well, it's 10 o'clock, so maybe we'll get started. My name is Jill Sauter, and I am a consultant in marketing and business management here in Saskatoon. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. Hope you're staying safe and isolated and being careful out there in the community to help the fight against COVID. I have been a mentor with Rajmanik Mentorship for, gosh, maybe 5 years, and had some wonderful people to work with. So I do know about the foundation and what the organization does, and was happy to help out with some ideas on some opportunities and looking forward. I've been speaking with lots of business owners lately, and in the last couple weeks, attitudes have changed. There was some initial panic and very much bordering on depression because things happened so quickly and they were very much out of our control. And what I would like to do is give you some ideas on how you can look forward and find some optimism in the next few weeks as we look towards what happens next and what our new normal looks like. What we know right now.
Just a quick reminder for everyone, if you could mute your lines, that would be great. I'm sorry, Jill.
That's fine, thank you. Like I said, things happened very quickly, and there were lots of challenges for small businesses, especially with having to do layoffs so that people could ensure that they had a paycheck. The cash flow challenges, I understand those myself. I've had projects delayed. Some of them have been put on hold. Some of them have been just put on hold indefinitely. Budgets are tight with customers and with consumers. Whether you're a business selling to other businesses or businesses selling to consumers, there's lots of people are reluctant to spend. So that's definitely something we're dealing with. On top of that, we pile on personal issues, having to work from home and what's happening with kids. I've got a university student and a high school, a new graduate as of March, and lots of challenges there in trying to work on top of lots of those personal issues and even just the isolation of us all. It can be very challenging. The uncertainty of what happens next can be very daunting for a lot of people. I've been doing lots of work studying and speaking with people who are in the know about what happens next. And I've been studying other jurisdictions to see what's happening after the first wave of COVID has come through. What I'm hearing is that we can anticipate lockdowns happening again and again as there are contagious areas. We'll see local lockdowns, but I do anticipate economic stimulus through government programs. Supply chains, we've found, are very fragile when they're very long and complicated, and I think that we'll start to see some changes to supply chains and perhaps even some protectionism with trade. So if you have international customers, this is going to be uncharted territory, that's for sure. I also do think that there will be some support for buy local campaigns and movements. We had seen some of that before, but now I think that there's going to be some increased interest in having people shop locally. So if you do have a local customer base, this could be your time to shine. The one thing that's also changed that I'm seeing is that customers are changing their priorities, whether those are consumers or businesses. We're all looking at how we've spent our money in the past and being very conscious about that spending into the future. So we may run up against more resistance in sales, but I think that people will be purposeful in their spending, and it will just be, for some of us, more of a challenge to make sure that we're on the list of necessities. We've got some problems with some background noise. If you could just mute your microphones, that would be very helpful. Thank you. One term that I heard throughout my research was a term called pandemic resiliency. And I think that that's something that we have to anticipate or work towards, because if we are going to be going in and out of lockdowns in different communities or different jurisdictions, I think that we'll have to bounce back again and again and again. And part of that is understanding that this is not a one-off situation, that these kinds of events are going to happen in the future. And if we can look to create that resiliency in our businesses, that can be a really helpful asset to draw on in the future. I also have been studying some other economies outside of Canada, and what I'm seeing is that where they've had pandemics before, especially SARS and MERS and Ebola, communities and businesses have become more resilient. They've got more tools at their disposal. They have, they're familiar with the process of lockdowns and what that means to their businesses, and they've worked to overcome those. We've never had that opportunity because we've fortunately had no pandemics reach us to a great extent. So I think that this is an unprecedented time, especially in Western Canada. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to build something that can really help us bounce back quicker. So how do we do that? And especially small businesses with limited resources or limited people, time, energy, money, it can be very challenging. But I think for me personally, and I think for other businesses that I've talked to, not having options can be very stressful. And especially that first 2 weeks of lockdown when businesses were told to close and people were laid off, there didn't seem to be much choice there. And I think that if we can take steps toward becoming more resilient, that action creates momentum, and that momentum can create some optimism. So as we look to saying what's next after the lockdown or what's next for my business, I think that we can, if we start doing some things that work towards an end, that can help us build the momentum that we need. Okay, so what does optimism look like? To me, it looks like three things. One thing is connecting with customers and suppliers. I'll talk more about each of these in a few minutes. Uncovering problems. We all have problems in our business and our families and our personal lives. What ones can we help solve? And I've got some examples that I'll share with you. And the other challenge is to make sure that we know that the opportunities that we're looking at fit for our business and can work towards something positive. If we make a pivot and it's not profitable, that's not good for our business in the long term either. So do we pivot or not? Do we take advantage of an opportunity or not? Those are some things that I wanted to bring up with you today. One thing that I forgot, I'm sorry. If you have questions, please type them in to the comment section on Zoom. If we get questions throughout, that helps me to be able to customize the information to you and your businesses. And I think that a lot of us are in the same boat. So if you have a problem or have a question, I'm sure that others have the same questions. So please feel free to ask questions. Oh, we've got one here already. Oh, can I record this session? I believe it will be recorded and it will be available on the Rajmanik website. So no need to record. The first thing that I think about is reaching out, and I love the idea of just trying to connect in a personal way. 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, lots of us were receiving, our inboxes were full of emails saying, this is what this store is doing for COVID. This is what this restaurant is doing for COVID. This is what this social media platform is doing for COVID. And as much as I like to understand that the businesses and the people that I support are doing things to be part of a larger movement, I'm not sure that those impersonal emails were very helpful. If you're like me, I don't have a lot of customers, not thousands and thousands, so I can pick up the phone or write an email that's personal to someone and really connect with them. This is where things like customer lists and database programs can really be helpful, because they allow us to make that direct connection. Here's one thing to do for pandemic resiliency. If you don't have a way of recording your customer information, this is a great time to start. Take it out of your phone and get it into some kind of program, whether it's Outlook or even just a spreadsheet, something that can help you keep track of customers and be able to connect with them when it really counts. The personal connection is important. Just like junk mail or junk email, if things aren't personalized, that means that we're very good nowadays at putting things in the recycle bin, either digitally or actually. And if without a personal connection, we send that information right to the recycle bin. So the personal connection is important. Picking up the phone, especially in this time of pandemic, is one of the best things that you can do, and ask questions and listen to what people have to say. Not only does it connect you to your customers so you can understand what's happening in their world, it helps you to forecast. Do they anticipate opening again? What does that look like for them? What kind of challenges are they facing? Then you can get an understanding of what you can look forward to in the future. The second thing that it does is it helps you identify what their problems are. Last week, my husband's business was concerned about cleaning products. They're an essential service and they need to stay open, but they didn't have the cleaning products to make sure that the work environment was safe for the employees. So I was calling around Saskatchewan looking for hand sanitizer and sanitizing spray. And it's surprisingly easy to find because lots of breweries and distilleries have switched. They've made that pivot to create cleaning products for institutions as well as businesses. And as they fill that need, then their approach is to the general public. And those businesses have found that opportunity by identifying a problem. And I encourage entrepreneurs to think back to when you started your business, because you were a very good problem solver at that time. You saw a need in the marketplace, you saw a problem that didn't have a solution, and you created that solution for your customers. We're doing the same thing now, but the problems may be different. And unless you connect with your customers, you will have a hard time understanding what their problems are. The second thing is that we can go out and find new customers, but the customers who know you and have done business with you for years, they're the ones that have the information about what their problems are and what their challenges are. And they know you, they understand you and your business and what services you provide, and they're more likely to buy in the future from someone they already know. So reach out and make that connection. In some cases, it's not always a connection, a problem that you can solve by selling a product or service. Sometimes they need hand sanitizer, and you happen to know where they can get hand sanitizer, and so you share that information with them. You know that they're having problems with finding information about government programs, and your accountant sent you a great email with a spreadsheet calculator on it, like mine did, and you send that information on to them so that they can have a tool that's not related to your business, but they will always remember how you treated them and how you helped them when they had a problem, no matter what that problem is. So think about those, when they talk to you about their problems, what are they, big or small, related to your business or not? So what are the things that you can do? Customer lists, those are critical in isolation or out of isolation, pre-COVID or post-COVID. They're very important. If you don't have a system to track your clients, please work on getting something in that prepared for that. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be accessible and something that you can sort easily. Start connecting personally. Again, sometimes picking up the phone can be just the contact that someone needs, especially if some of your customers are extroverts. They're dying right now. So reach out and connect with them. Ask lots of questions and really listen to the answers. We're very much good tellers. We're not good listeners. So in this time when some people need to vent or you want to get information from people so you can run your business, ask the questions and then listen to what they have to say and even clarify. Or if you're not sure about what they said, mirror it back. At the end of the call, say, I heard that you had this problem and this problem. I'll be looking for these solutions to that problem. The other thing is to follow up. I think it's one thing to connect with someone, but if you do have that nugget of information, or if you do have a pivot that you need to follow up on, or even just to say, you know, thanks for the conversation. It was really helpful for me in my business, and I hope it was helpful for you. I look forward to doing business with you in a new way when this is done. That appreciation is always helpful, and it just gives you one more connection with that customer. So there are four really important things to get you started. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was problem solving. I think that, like I said, I mentioned the distilleries and how they've pivoted. 2 days after we went into isolation, I think it was probably March 14th, I got a Facebook message from a local caterer, and she said that Junos were canceled. All my meetings in the future that I cater to are canceled. What do I do now? And it was, I could feel the anxiety in her voice and the sadness and the disappointment and the fear, the lack of control. And it was just a few minutes of conversation, and we came up with some ideas where she could find opportunities. And I think that that's the biggest thing for us to get that optimism back, is to look for those opportunities. When people have problems and you understand that you have capacity, that overlap of the problem and your ability to solve it, that's where the opportunity lies. In my conversation with the caterer, she said, I have a lot of ingredients because I was planning all these meetings and events and I need to get rid of them. And I said, well, I know that I like stuff that is in my freezer and I can just pull it out. Just because people are working from home doesn't mean they're less busy or they like cooking more. So there are people out there who need that extra meal that's easy and handy. So take those ingredients that you have already purchased and find a way to repackage them into something that people want. So she started doing freezer meals. She started doing deliveries. She started making high-end desserts because people are comfort eating right now. And then she also offered an Easter dinner. And it was a full meal that people didn't have to go out and shop for. They didn't have to prepare, especially people who are working from home during this time. It can be very stressful. So giving them an opportunity to have a nice Easter dinner with their family and not having the stress of cooking it or shopping for the ingredients was a real lifesaver. And she set a number of dinners that she wanted to create. She bought all the ingredients and she sold out. So it was a really great opportunity for her. She doesn't do a lot of catering for individual families, but it was a great opportunity for her to keep her staff busy and to do the things that she really does well. The other thing is that maybe some of those people who bought her Easter dinner are also influencers or purchasers for their company. So maybe they'll remember that great Easter cream egg cheesecake that she made, and they'll think of her when they have a special event at work. And so that it could be an opportunity for her to share what she knows with other people who are potential customers in the future. So as you're connecting with people and listening to them, what I think you'll find is that there are common pains, whether it's related to your industry or the fact that your customers are all similar. Maybe you cater to working moms or to businesses. There will be a common pain, and you'll see that after 2, 3, 5, 10 calls, you'll start to see some of those problems come up again and again. Solving that problem or identifying that problem is one thing, but understanding that you have the capacity to answer that problem and create that opportunity is a complete other question. Understanding what capacity you have is critical. Do you have the people? Do you have the cash flow? Do you have the line of credit if you need it? Do you have is there the capacity as far as government regulation? A lot of the distilleries that converted to be able to create sanitizing spray or hand sanitizer, they had to get licenses for transporting dangerous goods, because those products have a very high alcohol content and are flammable. The people doing hand sanitizer, they had to get new packaging, which may or may not be available. So there are things that we will have to understand about our capacity to solve that problem that may or may not work out. And I think I said this before, if the opportunity is not profitable for your business, is it the right thing to do? For some businesses, it is, like that caterer. Maybe she could use that as a stepping stone to connect with other businesses. But if it's not profitable or strategic for your long-term business, is it the right way to go? And that's not a question I can answer, but it's definitely something to consider with your own cash flow and understanding what your capacity is. So yeah, looking at short-term, what are your short-term goals? Do you have the cash flow? Do you have the workflow? Is it profitable? And then what are those long-term goals? Can this work that you're doing now, or the pivot, can it take you to other opportunities? Any questions on that? Everybody's pretty quiet. All right. So the third thing is understanding what it is that you need. What does your business need? The profitability, the cash flow, money is going to be tight for everyone, for customers and for you. So will this opportunity lead to other opportunities? That's a huge question. And it's not always easy to answer, especially if you've got some changes in your financial situation based on what's happened throughout COVID. So what can this look like for your business? There are some businesses that are going online, and that can work very well for some businesses. And other businesses, what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of investment going into taking the product or service online, but there's not the payoff. And I'm thinking specifically about small retail. We are destination shoppers in Saskatchewan and lots of rural areas across Western Canada. We like the experience of shopping. And I think that they're right now, because lots of retail is closed, I think you'll find that a lot of people are realizing that they like retail shopping. They like a store with a door, and is going online, and the expense of going online, is that going to help you in the long run? For some businesses, absolutely, totally worth the investment. You should do this. For others, maybe not. And it's hard for me because I don't know all of your businesses, what type of business you're in, whether or not this is something that you should be looking at. If you have a profit potential, or in the grocery business, they call it a loss leader. If you can take some of your services online for now, in the hopes of getting more customers or finding new ways of delivering your services in the future, that can be a very good investment for you to make. So understanding what your capacity is before you commit is very important. What is your long-term goal? And for most businesses, I get it, we're just trying to survive. But if this is something that you need to do for the long-term health of your business, that's great. If not, is there some other way that you can address this and get over the hump into something else? I don't know if we've got any tourism businesses on the line today, but tourism and travel has been devastated by this. The inability for us to move around has severely restricted tourism, and especially a lot of the tourism possibilities, because lots of businesses rely on international visitors. I have relatives who have an outfitting business. One of my former clients is a fishing camp. So I understand that international travel, especially in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, is going to hurt. And then the challenge is, how do we look to local tourists to find ways to adapt what we have to offer to these new businesses, new customers. In business-to-business businesses, this can be a challenge because those businesses are hurting too, and they're experiencing problems in their industries and their supply chains, and it can be very challenging to break through that clutter of all of the things on their desk. I've got clients right now who are dealing with international trade issues. They can't get product from the US, so they are focused on that, and they're not really focused on any of the marketing that I'm asking them to do. So the work is not as important to them, and that change in priority is really hampering my ability to do what I do. Sorry. But what is the long-term challenge with this? And I think that's part of the opportunity here, is to look long-term, look at that pandemic resiliency, and look at what this might mean for us long-term. So just as a quick review, sorry, I'm just going to go back to this. So before we get to questions, I just wanted to reiterate that looking at connecting with customers and suppliers, that's critical to understanding what you have to look forward to, what your market is going to look like post-isolation or post-COVID. Excuse me. What does this look like for you? What problems do your customers have? Make that connection so that people remember you, and so that you can connect with them and they can have that feeling that you're in their corner. Uncovering problems is important. Understanding what problems your customers have and understanding what their priorities are is critical. Like I just mentioned in that example of my own, where does your product or service fall on their priority list right now? We've seen both businesses and consumers change their priorities quite dramatically. So where do you fit into that? And investigating those opportunities, just because there is a problem that you can solve, is it something that you want to take advantage of? And to me, that's important because we need to remain profitable. We need to remain viable for our own business survival, but also for all of the customers and the employees that are counting on us. So jumping into an opportunity without investigating it and making sure that it's right for our business in the long term could be a mistake. So we have to look at those opportunities, not just as something to do, but something that fits into our business situation now and also fits our strategy for the future. So I've shared some ideas for connecting, looking for problems, and finding opportunities, evaluating those opportunities. Do we have any questions specific to businesses? All right. Let's see. What would be the strategy for startups who, due to COVID, don't have any clients yet? Great question. What I would be doing right now is that connection, not with customers maybe, but with people in the industry. I would definitely be looking for situations or industry trends that you can address. Understanding what your capacity is to be able to go after different markets. The challenge with the idea of a pivot, a pivot requires two things. It requires a stable point and a movable point. That's what a pivot involves. And if you don't have customers or a business track record to create that stable point, it's hard to make that change. So as a startup without customers, you may have to, maybe the need for your product or service is greater now. Maybe it's less so, but the plan to launch the business can't go on as you had planned before. So you will have to make some changes to that strategy, that launch strategy. And to me, connecting with mentors, with suppliers, with industry people, thought leaders, that can all be really helpful in allowing you to launch in the new environment in a more productive way, so that there are good outcomes for you. Other questions? Quiet bunch. I did want to share some other stories of some pivots. I know that there are some businesses that have they have taken their marketing or their marketing online. So instead of meeting with people directly, they're meeting them online. They're having Zoom conversations. They are they're starting to sell online when they didn't sell before. So there are lots of businesses doing that. People are taking their sales forces away from an in-person sale to an online sale and helping their salespeople make that adjustment, adjusting their marketing plans to include more digital. Because if people aren't driving around very much, a billboard doesn't help. So there's opportunities like that. But understanding how you cut through the clutter when somebody when someone is stressed because their business isn't performing the way they want it to, does your solution still fit for them? We're all working at home, we're working in email, we're working with Zoom calls. do we have can our message cut through that clutter? And that's a really good question that, that you could ask yourself about your promotional strategy. I've got another question here. Okay, other examples. Other examples of pivots. I know clients are doing their, one thing that some businesses are focused on right now is their staff. And absolutely, the health of the staff is important. The activity of the staff is important. But I know one business that's taken this time to really focus themselves on their employer brand. So are you a good place to work? Are you an employer that people talk about in a positive way when they talk to their friends about their job? Or are you an employer that they say, well, I don't know, I'm looking for a new job all the time? That's not a really strong employer brand. So they've taken this time to really solidify that relationship with their employees. We care about you, we care about your families, and we really want you to make this your the place you really want to work at. And especially in businesses with high turnover, that employer brand is critical for them to be focused on. And because maybe some customer relationships have dried up, they're really focused on making sure that their employees know that this is the best place to work and these are the reasons why. So that is not really a pivot, but it is a change in focus for some employers. So that's been really helpful. I've also seen, especially in service businesses, where people are providing a service to especially other businesses. What I've seen is instead of a selling sort of promotional strategy, what they're doing is saying, I've got your back, whatever it is you need. You need to get in touch with somebody who can help you with your program applications. Here's a great resource for you. If you need somebody to help you with personal home life stress, here's somebody who can help you with that. And they're really changing their promotional strategy to be very customized to the needs of individual clients. And that's working exceptionally well. I think that when we do that in times of stress, we really solidify our relationships with people. And especially if you don't have a lot of clients, like I can count my active clients on two hands. And so connecting with those people and really providing them with solutions, whether it's related to my product or service or not, I think that can help. One of my clients right now is in isolation. Just before the isolation, the state of emergency was called, they were in the middle of a kitchen renovation. So my client is living in his sister's basement with his wife and two kids, and their house is being renovated. A renovation is one of the most stressful events in a family's life. Add on to that cohabitating with a sibling, add on to that cohabitating or habitating with your family for 24 hours a day. So the stress level is very high. And so the questions and problems that I have are not really relevant to that person at this point. So I've been sending over things like coffee from a local coffee roaster, or some supplies, art supplies for the kids, just to connect with them in a different way and let them know I'm thinking about them, but not to worry about me or what we're doing. I know that will pick up after this is over. So those are some pivots in promotional strategies. As far as businesses, I've seen some businesses start with capacity. People with 3D printers are printing the face masks for frontline healthcare workers. And similar to the situation with the sanitizing products, there is a limit to how much the health region is going to buy. But there are also lots of other workers who could use that personal protective equipment and don't have access to it. So then do people in the agriculture industry need that sanitizing product or that personal protective equipment? Because we still have to plant crops. People still need fertilizer and seed to put a crop in the ground. So those people are essential workers, but they're not in healthcare. So then does that create another market opportunity? People with employees who need to do things, they've started delivery businesses. So instead of having their employees work in their factory or their office, what they've done is they've employed them as couriers, because there are still a lot of businesses that are operating. There are accounting firms, there are law firms, the courts are going to open up again. All of those businesses rely on couriers. So how can we help, how can we help those businesses? And they've employed their people as couriers instead of office workers or laborers. So those are some other ideas on how we pivot. We look for that opportunity and that need, and then we try to fill that. What about cleaning? Lots of people that were doing domestic cleaning. Businesses have to clean like an unbelievable amount just to stay open and keep their people protected. So what does that look like? As businesses prepare to reopen, is there an opportunity to clean offices and get them ready for employees to come back? One thing that I was thinking about is in this whole, I mentioned supply chains and how they're going to be shortened. Think about the cotton swabs that are used for the COVID tests. They're a plastic with cotton on the end or some kind of absorbent material. The plastic is a one-time use plastic. Did you know that the flax straw that we see burning in the fields in the fall is actually the stalks are able to be sterilized? They're an organic material that can be sterilized. What if we started making swabs here in Canada out of flax straw and some other kind of biodegradable absorbent material at the end that can be used as a swab? Most medical swabs are probably going to hospitals right now. Is there a shortage of swabs? Can we find a green solution to a garbage problem, as well as creating a supplier of those products that were in dire need 3 weeks ago and will probably be needed in the future? Can we create that business right here in Saskatchewan? I am not going into the flax straw swab business, so feel free to investigate that on your own. But there are lots of supply chain issues that are coming out of what we're seeing with COVID. When we've got medications that are unavailable, where do medications get produced? Where do we package medications? How does that, what else are we short of? Is there a local supplier that can supply something here in central Canada, the central North America, that could be used in this area? And I think that from this situation, there'll become a lot of opportunities for us to minimize the fragility of that supply chain by shortening it and strengthening it in domestic markets. The costs will go up, granted, but the other thing that I've been thinking a lot about is telehealth. Lots of doctors are taking appointments on the phone. And what does that mean for the telehealth industry? How does that change how a doctor's office is set up? How does that change how record keeping happens? How does that change how people are trained to work in a doctor's office? And what kind of technology is required? What kind of services are required for those people? What kind of training do they need? I'm learning myself about doing webinars, and how do you teach bedside manner to a doctor who is staring at a screen? And those things are all opportunities that are coming from this situation. And if we can pivot, that's great. If we find a profitable opportunity from that, those are great opportunities. The ones that are not profitable or don't have long-term strategic value, those ones can be rabbit trails that we follow to really no end. And I just caution you against some of those pivots that take you away from your core business. Any other questions? No questions. You have this presentation with my name on the bottom. If you have questions later about your business specifically, I'm very happy to have a phone call or share some emails back and forth, or have a Zoom call if that's required. I would be happy to answer questions about your specific business and your situation, if it will help you to become more optimistic and look to the future with some energy and some enthusiasm. Any other questions before we sign off?
Jill, I think we have another one here. It says, in this moment, how can I reach customers with new products? For example, I started to open a restaurant and have new dishes.
Interesting. Restaurants are tough, as you know, because of the restrictions on them right now. But I always think about, whether it's products or services, the idea of sampling is super important. People can't taste or smell your product over a Zoom call or in a picture, but definitely sharing that a sample with some, especially your really good customers. If you have customers already, sharing a new dish with them would be something. Oh, we've got.
This is through Praxis. So here's somebody that says, by the way, if any of us here need IT services, you can reach out to upgraded.solutions.ca. We will offer you free 45 minutes. I bet she got cut off at half an hour. Anyway, 45 of your IT systems.
Sorry, if everyone could mute their lines, that would be great.
Oh, I'm not even muted.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think that that's an example of sampling that is a really good one. I'm on a Facebook group for my neighborhood, and we've had people who are pharmacists, IT specialists, people who have businesses themselves. They've offered their services, and sometimes it's free of charge, sometimes it's at a reduced rate, sometimes it's full price. That reminds me, we have to talk about price. Those opportunities to share anything with current customers or new customers on a small scale, those are great opportunities for people to get a sample of what you do or the products that you sell. So with your restaurant, if you do have customers, I would share some photos, or photos on social media are great. But if you can add in a little bit of a sample dish for someone who's a regular customer and get them to review you on whatever platforms you use for social media, whether that's Uber or Uber Eats or Skip the Dishes or TripAdvisor or Google, asking people for a review in return for a sample is very, very helpful. If you don't have customers right now, it's challenging, but I would say that there's probably digital, some social media connection with people would probably be your best bet, just because you can really target location and type of customer with social media platforms, and great pictures of your products, your new dishes will be, people love seeing that kind of stuff. So I would maybe look to do some online social media advertising. How are we for time? I did want to mention price. one of my good friends who's in business for herself, she was wanting to offer her services at a very much reduced price because she's concerned that her customers are not, their cash flow is limited, and to her it seemed insensitive to charge full price for her services in a time when people's budgets are strained. And I had to talk her off that ledge over about a week. I'm a believer that price is the last promotional tool that you have, and it should be the last resort. I think that your products have value. If they had value pre-COVID, they should have the same value now. I think that things like price gouging, of course, those are not only illegal, they're immoral, and that's not necessarily something that we should think about. But if you offer a product or service at a fair price, where both you and your customer are deriving value from that transaction, I think that there's no reason to cut your price just because you need the work. I would say that getting that contract or getting that customer or making that sale, it's worth finding the customer who really values your product or service and getting them to be a loyal, frequent customer. That's a lot more valuable than cutting your price and selling a little bit of stuff right now just to keep things happening. I've got a couple of other questions here. Anyone having challenges when it comes to employee relationships? We've got some promotions that I agree with pricing. Price yourself to be in business in 5 years. Thank you very much for that, Ronci. Yeah, some IT services, HR services, all great, great support systems out there. And I think through your connection with the Raj Manik Group, if you can help each other with maybe a little bit of service in return for some support online or a great review or something like that, those can all be really helpful connections that you can make. But I would consider branching out beyond this group and maybe looking at some of your very loyal customers if you've got them, or to people who are in your target market to introduce new products or services if you have them, like the person with the restaurant. Other questions from anyone? Right.
I think that
I don't see one person. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Oh, is there something, one more question here? Sorry, I'm just gonna.
I think that's all the questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone. We really appreciate your time. And like I said, you've got my name at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to Google me, and you can reach me. My contact information is on my website, or you can find me at Jill Sauter on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. And I'd be happy to answer questions or talk through your specific business situation.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jill. Thank you for preparing this discussion for the group. We very much appreciate it. Holy smokes, was this ever a valuable hour for at least me? I know, but the discussion continued and continued, and so I know lots of people have kind of stimulated some new ideas over the past hour. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And you might not be going into the flax straw business, but maybe we have another 30 people who are here after this. I'm considering it. On a separate but related note, thank you also for your ongoing support of the program as always, and participating as a mentor for a number of years, as you mentioned. So thank you for that. And you know, really it is mentors like you that make such a great impact on the community, even more so during times like this. And we can definitely see that through this past presentation, this over the past hour, I should say. Thank you everyone also for joining us. Please continue to keep in touch with us through our website, our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, to get details on next week's seminars. Topics and login details for next Tuesday and Thursday will be posted. You're probably seeing a bit of a theme. It tends to be Tuesdays and Thursdays around the same time, 10 or 11 Central Standard Time. So keep in touch with us that way. And again, thank you so much, Jill. Holy smokes, this is a really valuable hour. And thank you everyone, and have a great rest of the day.